All right, fam, welcome back to Speed Ass Garage. On this episode, we have another project in the garage. This is a type of project that I believe the algorithm like. The reason I come up with that solution, nobody really watches my 240 videos. Don't nobody care about my new car reveal video. People do like the super content. People do like the Honda content, but out of all my content, this video right here is what has gotten the most amount of views. Evidently, everybody likes a G-body, and my boy Jeff's daggone G-body is a great example of a G-body. So, on this episode, what do you think we're gonna be working on today? Let me show you. What we have here is the legendary El Camino. Now, I know at first glance this joker look a little rough, but for all my car enthusiasts, you see the potential. You see the potential. So this particular customer actually found from a friend of a friend. Me and him end up been talking for a few months. And this is the kind of guy, you know, sometimes you meet customers and you just click, man. This dude is like a brother. We're on the same wavelength. We got the same demeanor. The way we carry ourselves the same. So this is considered one of my boys now. So we got a lot to do to get this thing back to all of its glory. Backstory, this was a vehicle he had right out of high school. It looked a whole lot better than it do now. It's been sitting for quite a long time. Due to kids, life, you know the deal if you have those things in your life. And now he's ready to bring this thing back to where it should be. So a few things we're doing to it. We're modernizing the engine. It had an old school like 350 with a carburetor, took that out, put a 5.3 in it from a Suburban that he got as a parts car. We're still using the factory transmission. So therefore we got to run a vacuum line to the little pod that allows the transmission to shift. We're trying to get, he basically installed the Holley. He's got a new ignition switch in there. We got to wire some things up. He wants us to do a fuel gauge because he don't know how much fuel he's got in the tank. We need to make custom seat brackets for the seats. If you don't know, but these cars come with a bench seat. So he decided to go to the junkyard. He found 2 bucket seats that he liked. So we're gonna make some bracketry to make that work. And then we're gonna final up with a little bit of a tune. We also got to do some stuff to the fuel lines into the back of the fuel tank. And then we also have to reconnect his exhaust. I'll take you along through the process, but we're gonna get started with the wiring. So for the most part, my boy got everything wired up, but the problem we're having is the car only starts in the start position. So basically, we got the red with the white wire. This needs to be switched. This needs to go to an ignition. And since he replaced his ignition module, we got to verify that it's not on a wire that it has power when it's starting, but it needs to be a power that when you turn the key on, the first click, it has power. Let's make sure this thing is on. Nothing. Alrighty, let's check the battery. Yeah, that mug is dead. This jug got 2.1 volts. So we're gonna start with the driver's seat. He had it bolted, that front bolt to there. That kind of let me know exactly where he wanted to seat it. But with this little flange and that flange, that's not gonna work. We need to cut those off and figure out what we need to do to the back and front to make the back and front work inside of the El Camino. So I decided to disassemble the seat. I don't want to mess up the cushions. I don't want to take the seat apart, but about 20 minutes in maybe, I figured it out. So now we're gonna use this base to basically figure out how we're gonna orientate our bracketry so that this thing can fit inside of there. I used a couple of pieces of wood to kind of get it like I want it. I used my angle finder, found a somewhat flat spot on the back of the chassis, transferred it to this bar here. Taking a couple of measurements, I got kind of a general rough idea of the bracketry I need to use. I hit it with a couple coats of semi-gloss black. That side is knocked out. Let's knock out the passenger side. So back to the wiring, the customer had installed this new ignition switch. The reason he did that was because he burnt up a bunch of wires. I was only getting power on this purple wire, but I felt like that there was another wire that was supposed to be hot, because when I would cycle the ignition switch to the on position, something else should be getting hot. So looked at the schematics and come to find out it was just red wire. Matter of fact, it's both of these red wires. Let me show you on the hood where these two red wires come from. From factory, this is the red wire. Actually, I don't even know why this color is this color, but make a long story short, there's two red wires up here. They actually come from the alternator. And of course, the alternator, all-time hot, comes from the battery. So the battery powers the alternator, and then this alternator powers the two red wires in the ignition switch. I'm gonna turn the key to the on position and we'll show you which wires gets power when you turn it on, so that we can wire that wire up to the Holley Terminator. So we finally got our Holley ignition wire wired into the ignition switch. So we have our Holley ignition wire, which is the red wire with the white stripe. I got it tied in to the pink wire on the actual ignition switch. For our starting system, we're using basically an old school style 1970-ish, 1980-ish starter solenoid. Make a long story short, this power wire here attaches to the alternator. The alternator wire is attached to the all-time hot battery wire. So this wire is all the time hot. This wire right here goes down to the starter signal wire. And then this is the starter signal wire, the one that says S on it. That's the wire coming from the ignition switch. So whenever that S wire gets power, this solenoid basically transfers this power from here to there, which goes to the starter. This is the ignition wire. That's going to the signal wire for the alternator. We have a diode right behind that bulky section. You can order the wire from Terminator X, or you could purchase one of these 1K ohm resistors, half watt, and you can basically wire that in line. So I wired it in line, I heat shrinked it, and then I went a step further and put a piece of rubber hose on it because this thing is fragile. I mean, if you bend that too many times, it will break. Since you're using the old school style transmission, the shifting actuates basically off of a vacuum pod. So we tied into this hose that comes from the throttle body to the catch can. It tees off and then it runs down to the bottom. The last thing we need to do is we need to add a ground from the chassis to the cylinder head. So this is what I had laying around. I'm gonna bolt this up, then we should be able to fire it up. Maybe the battery's low. Maybe that started solenoid's bad. All right, let me check the outbound side of the starter. Be nice if I had two hands. I mean, more than two hands. Yeah, that's a bad solenoid because it didn't even light up. But we got another issue. We got a little bit of fuel leakage coming from back here somewhere. So I need to contain that real quick like, and then we need to fix this real quick like. We got the new one installed, but I think I'm gonna wait till tomorrow, man. I want to fix that fuel leak because I don't want this mug catching on fire. So I'll be back with you tomorrow. All right, fam, next day we're here working on the El Camino. We got the owner, Larry Sanders.
Hey, how y'all doing?
So he's over here, he's helping me fix the fuel leak. Matter of fact, he did all the work on fixing the fuel leak. So we're about to prime this thing up, verify that it has no fuel leaks, and then we're gonna start it. But before we start it, what's the history on the El Camino?
Man, I had this car since I was about 19. Did frame off. The car was actually in immaculate condition. It needed a paint job now. I let it sit, 383 stroker in here. And the engine had cracked. I was on the way to Fayetteville one day and the gauges stopped working, and I thought it was just something up under there. And I looked and it was overheating, and I cracked my block and I let it sit because I had so much invested in it. I was over it. So now I'm back, phase 2, putting the LS in there, finna get it running, blah, blah, blah.
You heard it and you seen it. The Joker got potential. So right now, like I said, we just fixed the fuel leak. We about to key on, make sure it ain't got no fuel leaks, and then we're gonna fire it up because we got to get it in the garage. All right, key on. Again. Look good back here.
Want to start it? Switch it off.
Yeah, go for it. Hold on. So some relays, the eye is actually the ground for the relay. We're gonna see what happens. Yeah. Daggone it.
Oh shoot.
Yeah, I know, man. I won't paying attention in that mug.
Good God.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. So we got the return and the feed line switched around in the correct orientation, but the feed line has a little small crack under it. We're just gonna ignore it. Right now, we just need to transfer some vehicles back and forth to get this thing in the garage, and then we'll take care of it. All right, that's good. So my boy has these headers that you always find on eBay. They're everywhere. They're basically like long tube headers. They look good, but they do not fit the G body. Matter of fact, when I looked at them, the description said that they fit a C10. And the reason they don't fit, can you see where it's contacting on the frame rail? This is the passenger side. And then right here is touching on the driver's side. So because of that, we're gonna have to go back to the tried and true truck exhaust manifolds. Passenger side, driver's side. Went to the local scrap yard and I picked up both flanges. And then also picked up the appropriate gaskets. There's the other gasket for the passenger side. With this, we should be able to make that work. So let's get the old stuff off and put the old stuff on. And in case anybody's wondering, there's a tremendous amount of exhaust soot on the top part of this flange, and the reason that being is because the flange can't be flat against the cylinder head because it's where it's touching that on the bottom is preventing it from torquing down. So that's kind of also the main reason why we're swapping this out. So I thought this was gonna be smooth sailing, but that's as close as I can get as far as bolting up the top of the flange to the head, and it's touching this brake line, and it's impossible to get a bolt in that right there. So I think I'm gonna have to cut this flange off and I'm gonna have to rotate it. And if I have to do that, that means I'm gonna have to do the same thing on the exhaust portion because that's fixed also. So what I'm trying to say is the passenger side flange, it's an exhaust pipe and then the flange rotates so it kind of can do whatever it wants. This one is fully welded and there ain't no way around that. So I think I'm gonna have to cut it here and I'm gonna have to do the same thing for the exhaust manifold. So I got that flange cut off. Should be able to angle it away from these brake lines. But after tightening this up, I don't think that's gonna work either, man. I don't think it's gonna work either. So the ideal here is I'm gonna cut a little pie out on the side that I want this flange to angle towards. And I'm basically gonna hammer it, close it, and then weld it. And I might even go a step further and like hit that mud with a flap just to make it look OEM-ish. Oh man, it freaking broke off. I should have heated it up first. Dang it, man. So off camera, I ended up foul fitting the exhaust manifold. I had to modify this flange. I had to modify it right here so it could clear the frame. And now we're ready to preheat the manifold, and on this particular setup, I'm just gonna MIG weld it. Everybody knows that the LS manifolds are made out of like a cast steel. You can weld it, TIG weld it, or you can MIG weld it. I'm gonna preheat it. The reason you preheat it is because it's cast. If it cools down too quick, the tacks are cracked, the welds are cracked. So I'm gonna use a combination of preheating it, tacking it, taking it off, fully welding it, and then I'm gonna put it in the oven at maybe like 200, 250 degrees, and I'm gonna let it chill in there and bring the temperature down over maybe a course of like 30 minutes to an hour. And we're gonna do the same thing with the other side. Got the exhaust wrapped up, is completed. But all day Saturday, man, this El Camino has been giving me a hard time. So let's go over a few of the obstacles that we had to overcome, and I'll let you know what we did to overcome those obstacles. First thing first, we had the fuel tank, AK fuel lines, leaking again. We ended up replacing the fuel lines with some new fuel lines, some lines that I felt comfortable with. This is what was on the car originally. And the only thing I can think of is you can't tell, but I'm kind of strong, man, and I can't hardly bend this deal. And this hose is like hard, man. Like this joker stiff, boy. Like this joker was stiff like me last night, about 10:30. Anyways, so I replaced it with a little bit softer hose. I mean, to be honest with you, this junk look like, I don't even know what it looked like, but it don't look like no hose, I tell you that. I replaced it with some 3/8 hose, and as you can tell, this junk is like newer because it's got some writing on it. I trust it, and it's made in the USA, so it should be expensive. Got that fixed. It was time to top off the coolant, so I used my special little funnel. You can get these on eBay, Amazon. You might even get them at a parts store. Put water in this thing, and guess what happened? If you can tell, that last bolt hole, exhaust manifold bolt hole, was waddled out. Customer knew about it. Guess what came out of that junk? Some water. So my boy's in a crunch. I want to get this thing out. We don't feel like replacing the head, so I'm gonna attempt to try to weld that shut, flap disc it, so that it won't be like raised up whenever we bolt everything back together. And we'll see if we can continue on with tuning this thing and getting this thing out of Speed Ass Garage. Also on the tuning aspect of it, I got it started up. My boy came over, we couldn't get it started no more. We pulled the spark plugs out. Spark plugs on this side were completely black. We cleaned them over there on the belt sander. And then we went to go check this side. All of these spark plugs were absolutely clean. They had a little bit of fuel on them, but they were clean. I wanted to verify spark. Go to Harbor Freight, get you one of these. It's basically like a little spark plug or spark plug wire tester. When you turn the motor over, this little light bulb inside of here is supposed to flash. That lets you know that your spark is working. Put it on this side, we got spark. Put it on this side, we didn't have spark. So the first thing that came to my mind is we need to check the ground. Specifically, we need to check the ground on the back of the cylinder head. And when I checked that ground, you could grab the wire and actually move it. The bolt was tight, but what had happened was the bolt was too long. So when you tighten the bolt that's too long, it bottoms out. It leaves a gap in between the flange section of the bolt and the head, and allowed the ground wire to be able to move. I mean, it's technically touching, so it should work. But I'm trying to tell you, I took that bolt out, used another bolt, shorter bolt, put it together, and the thing started up. So we're gonna weld this cylinder head up now, and then we should be ready to go back to tuning this thing, getting the idle parameters good, getting the throttle body adjusted and whatnot. Man, I've been messing with this thing for about 30 minutes. If you can tell, there is a piece of broken off bolt in there, and I'm trying to get it out. Yeah, check out the, hold on. Check out the finished product. I'm pretty sure that needs some kind of calibration or something else plugged into the back of it. Fuel gauge is reading a little something. And then I riveted his Terminator X little hand controller right there. That way he can play with some stuff. He can monitor whatever he wants. All we gotta do is take that and put it into there. So overall, for my El Camino fans, my G-Body fans, we have now wrapped up this awesome antique but up-to-date vehicle over here at Speed Ass Garage. So if you like this content, You know what to do. Subscribe. And hey, if you need any kind of work like this done, hit your boy up. You can reach me on social media, IG, Facebook, or you can email me. See you on the next episode. We on the side of the road, man. The daggone differential locked up, daggone it. Shoot!
That's for real, bro.
Man, we almost had it too, man.
Dude.
Dang, we tried. It was running good too.
Oh my God, I'm sick. Oh my God.
Man, it was running good.
Oh my God.